like, you know, now that I look at this, this is an incredibly difficult topic to broach without, you know, some people might take offense at you know, when you hold a mirror up to reality and say, oh, you're too fat to, you're not too large. You don't need to use these kind euphemisms. You can just call it fat. You're just too fat to ride a ride. Can we just start being honest? Oh, I'm just this insert euphemism here. No, it's just fat. It's like you can call it what it is. What do people on Twitter say? They say like fat or obese is a slur. It's like no, the underlying thing is negative, and so any word that associates that refers to that concept is also going to attach a negative connotation. So fat or obese, it doesn't matter. You can come up with a euphemism for it, and then that euphemism will also be tainted with the negative because the underlying thing is clearly negative because it has adverse health issues, and you can't bury that. You can't sugarcoat it, or otherwise they'll eat that too. So the rides are not too small for Universal. We're just too fat. Universal fat shaming fat customers, Amerifat plus size. No, just call it fat size. Even this other guy wrote another article about Universal, whether it's hostile to fat people, and he was using these euphemisms, but he was also fat. I'm looking at him thinking like, just stop. Like the first stage is admitting you have a problem, right? So this is an important issue, dare I say a weighty one. But seriously, Amerifat is getting gross. Universal rides have a 40-inch waistline limit, and the copium in the comment section from this Gizmodo article is nuts. It's like, are you joking, right? Are you being ironic with this copium? And then you read it and think, no, I think you're being serious. I think you're being serious. You're not barrel chested or whatever euphemism you want to use. You're barrel bellied. America's in this weird place where calling people fat is problematic because you're fat shaming them. You know, what does that mean really? But that's an issue because obesity has negative consequences. It's not an opinion. There's a ton of studies on it. And the people who are saying obesity has negative consequences are doctors and researchers. And the people who are saying health at every size and body, whatever, empowerment or whatever the catchphrase is, don't have medical degrees and they haven't actually done any research on it. They're just fat people who enjoy eating donuts, myself included. But at least I'm not in denial on it. Like I think most fat people are not in denial on it. For some reason, this might come across wrong, but the fat positivity thing seems to be more a female thing. I think because guys are just used to getting crapped on their whole lives, that they're just a little bit honest. They're like, "Yep, I'm fat. I'm just a fatty, just a fatty fat. Too many beers." It's like that's what a beer belly is from. Too many beers, too many donuts. It's like there's no, oh no, you're just no. There's no euphemisms for it. It's better to accept reality. So it's a weird line in the sand where people are taking something that's dangerous and unhealthy and saying it's off limits as a topic. If things weren't in the midst of this Bolshevik revolution that we're in, we would have already had a push at the federal level to encourage people to simply eat less. And careful to say this, but the events of the past 3 years with that thing that happened over the past 3 years. That was one of the co-issues was obesity because it dealt with a cardiopulmonary issue, and obesity affects that. And at no point, this was under Trump, who himself is a great big fat guy. Nobody at the federal level said, "Hey, America, while we're dealing with this thing, we all need to eat less and get the weight down." That never happened, and that was a listed comorbidity, was obesity, and the states didn't do this, the media didn't do this, and the federal level didn't do this. They wouldn't just tell people to start eating less. That struck me as kind of scary, honestly, because you realize oh, we're not, this isn't a nation anymore because a nation has people that it cares for. I don't know what this is. I guess this is just an economic zone. Oh, we couldn't tell people to eat less because then the food industry will make less money. And then the healthcare industry will make less money because it won't be treating these obese patients. You realize, that should terrify you that, there's no push. The last push I remember was in the Reagan and Bush years when they had President's Council on Fitness, and that was kind of it. And that was a while ago, and you didn't see it under Trump, and you're not going to see it under Biden. I don't think you're ever going to see it again, where America just gets fatter and fatter, and nobody says, "Oh, we need to have a national battle of the bulge." Or all we got to do is eat less, and those political action committees for the food industry and the healthcare industry would be lobbying like crazy to push. Oh, this is all an istophobic plot to push some kind of feminist type of nonsense. He's like, but you're literally the high fructose corn syrup industry who's pushing this kind of thing. I remember when Super Size Me came out. It's like that was a BS movie because like you didn't have to force feed yourself not only the food but also the high fructose corn syrup. But that movie came out. It's like you look at that now, you go, oh, he wouldn't make that today. A movie about supersized French fries and high fructose corn syrup. It's like, oh, that stuff's just poison. Yeah, it's poison. It's weird that I'm not saying that they don't have the right to legally sell something, but that there's not a nationwide advertising campaign warning people about the dangers of fast food. And you look at the government, you look at the fast food industry, and you realize, oh, because they're lining their pockets at your expense. Like there are people, people go, oh, you should know better. You should know better. I hate to break this to you, but there's a lot of people who really don't know what the hell high fructose corn syrup is. Like that phrase just goes right over their head. Or like hydrogenated fats, like that double carbon bond. It's like, oh, how does that behave in the body? Oh, it causes strokes and heart attacks. Oh, so what's the daily recommended allowance for? There's different types of hydrogenated fats, and I forget the worst one. The recommended daily allowance for this type of fat is 0. It has no place in the human diet. It's like, oh, so it's in foods? Yeah, yeah. It keeps bread moist. Oh, maybe the hydrogenated fat shouldn't be in foods. But I mean, even then, it's still a calories in, calories out thing. It's like, oh, there's no like warning labels at fast food restaurants or on candy bars or anything. It's like maybe there should be. Oh, well, Americans aren't so stupid. They don't need warning labels. It's not stupid. It's like it's a question of ignorance, but I don't mean ignorance as a pejorative. I mean, if you're telling me about atomic physics, it's like I'm ignorant as to some the properties of subatomic particles. You're gonna have to explain it to me and talk me through it. It's the same way with the glycemic index and hydrogenated fats and fructose corn syrup. Oh, what do all those things do? Well, that and calories, it's like they all work together. We're going to have a nationwide discussion about this. Oh, so why doesn't that happen? Because we're not getting a whole lot of representative from our representatives. We pay them, or the taxpayers pay them, and that money goes to Ukraine. Yeah, some of it goes to Ukraine, and some of it goes in their pockets. Anyway, America just gets fatter and fatter, and it's not politically correct to discuss it. Then maybe it's time to wash away political correctness. You see how easy it's been over the past decade to manipulate a population by using media control and brainwashing to get people on board with the most ridiculous of ideas. To hear a 400 person who's out of breath on stage giving a TED talk about how great obesity is, then a year later they have a heart attack and depart this mortal coil. You hear me, I'm out of breath half the time because I can't breathe out of my nose because there's a dog that has a habit of sleeping on my pillow. And I'm allergic. It's as if they're pushing political correctness as a weapon to destroy the nation, because that's exactly what it is. You make something toxic, then you make it impossible to question or critique. And I forget to take the Allegro, that's why. So the issue here is not a silly ride at Universal. And there's some other guy was writing that article, and he's talking about the shame he feels of I feel for the guy, but it's like you got to have a come to Jesus moment here. And the best thing you can do for your family is taking them to Universal. No, forget Universal, forget all that kind of stuff. The best thing you can do for your family is to get below 200 pounds. It's like that should be your primary focus in life right now, is getting below 200 pounds. He sounded like he was much bigger than that. Nothing else matters, because you're not gonna see 60. You're not gonna be there for the grandkids if you're as fat as this guy was in the article. People are eating themselves into this early grave, and it's not just early grave, but it's it's a quality of life along the way of all these petty little humiliations of being that big, and then blowing out knee joints and having this other surgery, and the cost of the healthcare system, but also the psychological burden you're doing to yourself. I don't think that's good for people, and nobody's doing anything about it. Not the feds, the states, or the media. It just gets ignored because it's, in quotes, fat shaming. Well, none of that is real. It's all cultural Marxism designed to make people depressed and easily controlled. And at some point, the adults have got to re-enter the room and just start talking about how unhealthy obesity is. But it's just not going to happen. And you think about it. Well, where's it gonna come from? Nobody wants to get canceled, so people get fatter, they get heart attacks and strokes, and the taxpayers cover the increased public health care burden. I mean, you got women's magazines now, and you really got to see, like, well, who owns the magazine? And what's the publisher's? Who owns the publisher? It's usually an umbrella publisher that'll own like dozens of magazines. Like who are they? Who are their investors? And start tracing, trace the money back to the shareholders of these magazines that have like 300-pound women on the cover of, health and shape magazines. Like something's clearly not right here. Who's controlling this? Who's behind this? And well, that's you got to trace that down. It's another video. So the darker side is also is that fat men don't revolt. Fat men can't do much in that direction. You can't take back your nation, assuming it was necessary, constitutionally protected activity, of course. If you can't even get up a few flights of stairs, these people with all this cool gear, they forget like, well, the body is your first, I'll say, tool. Instead of calling the body is the first weapon. It's not to glow from orbit, but I mean, you're not going to be. You got to be able to run up a hillside carrying all that gear, and if you have like an extra 50 pounds of butter on you, you're not going to be able to do that. You're just going to stay on the couch, depressed, eating, drinking, and probably crying into your high fructose corn syrup. So these rides are designed for kids, and where's the ride? I don't even know what the hell kind of ride this is. If they're designed for Japanese, it's going to be, you're going to have a tough time. You see them talk to Asian people about how they perceive Americans. It'll make you laugh your ass off. So the rides are designed for kids and teenagers, people who are still skinny, but really at any age, nobody should have a waistline over 40 inches. There's no euphemism that you want to use. That's just way too big for anyone. I saw that Clownfish TV had did a video on this, but they're so nice. It's like that's why they have a lot of subs. They're talking about like for safety reasons, the seats have to be the right size so younger riders won't slip out. So you can't design a seat for a 300-pounder. That's also going to fit the range that people are supposed to be. I mean, keep in mind throughout most of history, most of American history, up until very recently, a woman, most like there was a time when like women would be, under 120 pounds like routinely, and men would be under 180 pounds routinely. Like that wasn't even when I was growing up. Like there were plenty of girls who were that lean and plenty of guys who were that lean. Like that wasn't unheard of. And then somewhere along the lines, fast food became like I remember growing up in town. And there in a small town, there were no fast food restaurants around. Like you had to drive a little bit to get to them. And then over the years, they just kept swapping up, and popping up. And you realize, oh, that does make a difference when you can drive through a drive-through. Like not even have to park it out of the thing, go inside, get a burger. It's like you can just drive through and get an 800-calorie snack. It's like that makes a difference. It makes all this stuff adds up and makes a difference. So seats are not designed to hold back a giant beer gut, and humans are not designed to have a giant beer belly. And from the psychological perspective, it's weird that all this happens and people are repressed from talking about it. Like I wonder what psychological effect that has about. It feels like a spring in America is being compressed, where people are just not allowed to talk about all these various elephants in the various rooms in America. They're avoiding these political landmines because they don't want to get canceled. So it's like, well, eventually that pendulum has to swing back, and there's anyway. So it seems like people are just too scared of the woke political commissars, and rightfully so, because they'll destroy your life for the smallest of social faux pas. It's I mean that's welcome to life in a very very low trust commercial zone now known as America. So the punchline is that the seats aren't too small. We're all just too fat. The idea that rides have testing seats for people, and then people get sad because they're too fat. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. Why don't you just jump to the next conclusion and go, oh, it's time to eat less? Yeah, as an individual, but also as a nation, it's very much time to eat less. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.